Many look to the Pilgrims and the Puritans who came to America seeking freedom, equality, and tolerance as the founders of America because they seem to begin a long, fruitful history of separation of church and state, democratic government, and fairness to the Native Americans. But alas, it was not so. The Puritans slaughtered the Native Americans in bloodbaths like King Philip's War and established a Puritan theocracy in which non-Puritans could be exiled or hung for upholding their beliefs. Things seemed likely to change at the Constitution Convention, during which it was decided in Article 6 that no religious test shall ever be required for the President or other holders of public office. Soon after, Thomas Jefferson gave his support to the Wall of Separation during his letter to the Dunbury Baptist Association in 1802. George Washington signed the Treaty of Tripoli, including Article 9 that stated that the government of the United States is in no sense founded on the Christian religion, and James Madison pushed for the First Amendment to the Constitution, in which it was decided that Congress could not establish a religion nor prohibit the practice of any religion. But these proceedings, that would become legendary for their progressivism, did not end debates about religion leaping to the forefront of the American mind in almost all of its history. Religionists pushed for laws to protect their faiths from outside incursion, to fund their religions, or to expand their domains of influence, while progressives attempted to set up an equal system of government in which there was no favoritism to any specific religion or faith. One of these debates was over prayer in schools. In the 1950s, public schools in the state of New York were instructed to make their children recite, "Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country." This was also the time when the Pledge of Allegiance was added to include God and the country due to the Red Scare. While a majority of the people in the U.S. at the time could accept it, at least 10% of the population took issue with it. These included atheists who believe in no God, agnostics who do not define what they believe, Hinduists who are polytheistic, Jews who are against compulsory religion because of historical events, and religious liberals who disagree with the level of compulsion. In the court case of Engel versus Vital, Justice Black reported that the court found the compulsory recitation of prayer at odds with the First Amendment and therefore unconstitutional. But simply the fact that it could ever be part of a school day is a cause to declare the church and state were not separated. A country such as ours, where religions vary substantially due to constant migrations to our rich, fertile fields, our cultures become variant and we cannot expect them all to be the same. It is intolerable to expect such a level of conformity to our culture. A more recent debate was that of the Christian Coalition, a social movement designed to enter into all levels of politics and to govern America by the ideals of Christianity through the use of the legislative branch. In the 1980s, the central Republican themes were the free market and lower taxes, but by 1995, the coalition shifted its focus to anti-abortion, prayer in schools, saying no to sex and the family. These goals came hand in hand with Newt Gingrich's Contract with America, who recently proposed an amendment to legalize school prayer to gain support in the 2012 election before he lost the nomination. In 1995, the coalition made up a third of the Republican Party and owed its huge successes in Congress to the coalition. The most recent debate circles around contraception. Obama has put his support behind contraception and the National Abortion Rights Action League. He is trying to allow all women to get contraception from their employers, but he found stiff resistance with many conservatives, especially the Catholic Church, who believe that contraception is a sin and that an employer should not have to pay for health care, specifically contraception. Obama's goal is to lower teen pregnancy, lower the population, and decrease the cost of prevention. Extra children place a high toll on the economy and increase the dependency ratio, or the ratio of dependents such as children, the elderly, etc., to working adults. Conservatives see contraception as a death is cheaper than life strategy, and are horrified that death must be supported by the employer, not the individual. It has been a battle that has raged for centuries, that of government paying or the individual supplying the money. Many see their religious beliefs as a way to lower their expenditures, like many a supporter of the Catholic Church, as do progressives try to further their democratic objectives that concern the economy by proposing free choice. I would also like to point out a myth about contraception. It does not kill a fetus. The birth control pill only prevents the release of an egg from the ovaries. So the worry of a life dying could just be an attempt to lower costs for the employer.
Same-sex couples should be able to get them.
Democracy demands that the religiously motivated translate their concerns into universal rather than religion-specific values. What do I mean by this? It requires that their proposals be subject to argument and amenable to reason. Now, I may be opposed to abortion for religious reasons, to take one example, but if I seek to pass a law banning the practice, I can't simply point to the teachings of my church or evoke God's will. I have to explain why abortion violates some principle that is accessible to people of all faiths, including those with no faith at all. Now, this is going to be difficult for some who believe in the inerrancy of the Bible, as many evangelicals do. But in a pluralistic society, we have no choice. Politics depends on our ability to persuade each other of common aims based on a common reality. It involves compromise, the art of what's possible. And at some fundamental level, religion doesn't allow for compromise. It's the art of the impossible. If God's spoken, then followers are expected to live up to God's edicts, regardless of the consequences. Now, to base one's own life on such uncompromising commitments may be sublime, but to base our policy making on such commitments would be a danger.
Unfortunately, on that day, President Kennedy chose not to dispel faith. In fact, what he chose to do was expel faith. The idea of strict or absolute separation of church and state is not and never was the American model.
I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a Christian, but you don't need to be in the pew every Sunday to know that there's something wrong in this country when gays can serve openly in the military, but our kids can't openly celebrate Christmas or pray in school. As president, I'll end Obama's war on religion, and I'll fight against liberal attacks on our religious heritage. Faith made America strong. It can make her strong again. I'm Rick Perry, and I approve this message.
I indicated my view, which is I do not favor marriage between people of the same gender, and I don't favor civil unions if they're identical to marriage other than by name.
You support a constitutional amendment, though, that would ban same-sex marriage.
We should have a federal amendment of the Constitution defining marriage as a relationship between a man and a woman. Calling it marriage creates a whole host of problems for families, for the law, for the practice of religion, for education. Let me say this, 3,000 years of human history shouldn't be discarded so quickly.
The walls will shatter. The government will fall. We will be conquered by a power that sifts like sand. Through all parts of our government, church and state will be tightly entwined, and the wall will be long since forgotten. Every 4 years, we are given a choice between church and state. Obama has taken up the stance of the liberal progressive in his declarations of free contraception and gay marriage. Republicans have taken up the opposite view to encompass prayer in schools, anti-abortion, anti-gay marriage, and anti-contraception. What will be your stance in the fight for the future?